Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayantiriye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, text number 80 onwards. So till yesterday, we were discussing about Narad Muni preaching to King Prachin Bharishat, and finally he came down to, yes, you have to do devotion service. Rest everything, karma kanda, or any sacrifices will not help you. Only devotional service can get you out of this material world. So text 80, Maitreya Vacha. So we know Maitreya Rishi is speaking to Vidurji. Bhagavat Mukhyo Bhagavan Narado Hans Yor Gatim Pradarshya hi Amumamantriya Siddha Lokam Tato Agamat. The great sage Maitreya continued, the supreme devotee, the great saint Narad thus explained to King Prachin Barhi the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. After giving an invitation to the king, Narad Muni left to return to Siddhaloka. So here Narad Muni is referred to as Bhagavan. Maitreya Muni is saying, Bhagavat Mukhyo Bhagavan Narado. So here, of course, we know Narad Muni is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he has these qualities to a very high degree, the qualities of Krishna. And that's why Maitreya Muni is referring to him as Bhagavan. In the word-to-word translation, Prabhupada says Bhagavan, he says the most powerful Narad Muni. So most powerful not in the physical strength-wise, but in the strength of devotion. Siddhaloka and Brahmaloka are both within the same planetary system. Brahmaloka is understood to be the highest planet within this universe. Siddhaloka is considered to be one of the satellites of Brahmaloka. The inhabitants of Siddhaloka have all the powers of yogic mysticism. From this verse, it appears that the great sage Narad is an inhabitant of Siddhaloka, although he travels to all the planetary systems. All the residents of Siddhaloka are spacemen, and they can travel in space without mechanical help. The residents of Siddhaloka can go from one planet to another individually by virtue of their yogic perfection. After giving instructions to great King Prachin Barhi, Narad Muni departed and also invited him to Siddhaloka. So after giving an invitation to the king, Narad Muni left to return to Siddhaloka. So Prabhupada is saying, so obviously Narad Muni is a resident of Siddhaloka, and Siddhaloka also means perfect. So they are perfect in yogic mysticism. And they can travel anywhere without the help of any aeroplane or spaceship. Prachin Barhi Rajarshi Praja Sarga Bhirakshane Adishya Putran Agamat Tapse Kapilashramam. In the presence of his ministers, the saintly King Prachin Barhi left orders for his sons to protect the citizens. He then left home and went off to undergo austerities in a holy place known as Kapilashram. The word Praja Sarga is very important in this verse. When the saintly King Prachin Barhi was induced by the great sage Narad to leave home and take to the devotional service of the Lord, his sons had not yet returned from their austerities in the water. However, he did not wait for their return, but simply left messages to the effect that his sons were to protect the mass of citizens. According to Veeraraghavacharya, such protection means organizing the citizens into the specific divisions of the four varnas and four ashrams. It was the responsibility of the royal order to see that the citizens were following the regulative principles of the four varnas, namely Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the ashrams, namely Brahmacharya, Grastha, Vanprastha, and Sannyas. It's very difficult to rule citizens in a kingdom without organizing this Varnashram Dharma. To rule the mass of citizens in a state and keep them in a complete progressive order is not possible simply by passing laws every year in a legislative assembly. Varnashram Dharma is essential in a good government. One class of men, the Brahmins, must be intelligent and Brahminically qualified. Another class must be trained in administrative work, Kshatriya, another in the mercantile business, Vaishya, another simply in labor, Shudra. These four classes of men are already there according to nature, but it is the government's duty to see that all four of these classes follow the principles of their varnas methodically. This is called abhirakshan or protection. So King Prachin Barhi, he became so renounced listening to Narad Muni's preaching and all the examples of Puranjan and later Vedarbi and Malayadhvaj and later the example he gave of that caterpillar. What else? So many examples, so many allegorical stories he told, and about how one can make progress in devotional service. So he immediately just left the house and did to devotional service of the Lord. He went to do austerities in a holy place known as Kapilashram. And he left the kingdom for his ministers to give relay the message to the Prachetas when they come back. So it's not like ministers were going to take over the kingdom and forget about Prachetas. They were going to rule. That was not even the thought of in the minds of ministers. And the real rule, Prabhupada explains, is if they establish the Varnashram system. Because that is a most scientific system and the perfect system for the proper upkeep and functioning of the society. Because it is designed by Krishna himself. It's not like somebody else came up with this system. It is designed by Maya Srishtam. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Srishtam. I designed it. I created it. All we have to do is implement it and follow it properly. But the implementation went wrong because people don't want to follow it. And that's when we see the caste system, which is completely wrong. Completely wrong. Otherwise, the four classes are always there. Even any society, American society or any other country you see, the four classes are always there. The intelligent class, administrative class, mercantile class, and the labor class. They're always there. But to put down the class based on their last name, caste, that is wrong. In fact, it went so horribly wrong, the caste system, which is not Varnashram system, so horribly wrong, that so many offshoots came about. Sikhism came from Hinduism, but no caste system, everybody is a Singh. That's it. So many people converted to Islam because Islam doesn't believe in this caste system. Christianity doesn't believe in caste system. They have their own way of discriminating. That's a different story, but not caste system. and 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 this is one of the reasons of the degradation of Hinduism. Of course, another reason was because we were under the rule of Muslims and British for such a long time. The real religion did not come forth. But even after the independence, it was not put into practice either. The real system, Varnashram system. And the thing just went downhill from there on. It is significant that when Maharaj Prachin Bar, he was convinced of the goal of life through the instructions of Narad, he did not even wait for a moment to see his son's return, but left immediately. There were many things to be done upon the return of his sons, but he simply left them a message. He knew that what his prime duty was. He simply left instructions for his sons and went off for the purpose of spiritual advancement. This is a system of Vedic civilization. Means no attachment. Do your duty and then give it up. Leave it. Sridhar Swami informs us that Kapilashram is located at the confluence of the Ganges and the Bay of Bengal, a place now known as Gangasagar. This place is still famous as a place of pilgrimage, and many millions of people gather there every year on the day of Makar Sankranti and take bath. It is called Kapilashram because of Lord Kapil living there to perform his austerity and penances. Lord Kapil propounded the Sankhya system of philosophy. So Lord Kapil, son of Kardamuni and Devahuti. We already read about him. So another place for our destination in one of our trips. Ashok Prabhu, I hope he's listening. So again, wonderful place, Gangasagar, and that is the place where Ganges meets the ocean. And it is mentioned from there on, Ganges goes down to the Patal Loka. Nobody sees it, nobody can see it. It goes in a subtle form, but it carries on to Patal Loka from there on. Tatra ekagramanadhiro govinda charanambujam vimukta sango anubhajan bhaktya tat samyatamagat. Having undergone austerities and penances at Kapilashram, King Prachin Bar attained full liberation from all material designations. He constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is a special significance in the words Tat Samitam Agat. The king attained the position of possessing the same status or the same form as that of the Lord. This definitely proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a person. So same form doesn't mean he's going to become Nirakar. He's always a person. In his impersonal feature, he is a rays of his transcendental body. He's a Brahmjyoti. But beyond that, he has a form. When a living entity attains a spiritual perfection, he also attains the same type of body known as Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. This spiritual body never mixes with the material elements. Although in conditional life, the living entity is surrounded by material elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and ego, he remains aloof from them. In conditioned life, the living entity remains aloof because it never mixes. In other words, a living entity can be liberated from the material condition at any moment, provided that he wishes to do so. The material environment is called Maya. According to Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita, This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So that's up to us. That Prabhupada says we can be liberated from the material condition at any moment, provided that we wish to do so. As soon as a living entity engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he immediately attains freedom from all material conditions. In the material state, the living entity is on the Jiva Bhuta platform. But when he renders devotion service to the Lord, he is elevated to the Brahma Bhuta platform. On the Brahma Bhuta platform, the living entity is liberated from material bondage and he engages in the service of the Lord. In this verse, the word dhira is sometimes read as vira. Actually, there is not very much difference. The word dhira means sober and vira means hero. One who is struggling against Maya is a hero, and one who is sober enough, to understand his position is a dhira. Without becoming sober or heroic, one cannot attain spiritual salvation. So in the shloka, this word came tatraikagramana dhiro. So it could also be read as hero. And Prabhupada gives the meaning of both. Etadhyatma paroksham gitam devarshirna naka yah shravyedhya shranyu tatsalingen vimuchyate. My dear Vidura, one who hears this narration concerning the understanding of the living entity's spiritual existence as described by the sage Narad, or who relates it to others, will be liberated from the bodily conception of life. So another Shruti Phal for all of us. So one who hears it or one who relates it will be liberated from the bodily conception of life. Means will be spiritually advanced. This material creation is a spirit soul's dream. Actually, all existence in the material world is a dream of Mahavishnu. As the Brahma Samhita describes, this material world is created by the dreaming of Mahavishnu. The real factual platform is a spiritual world. But when the spirit soul wants to imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is put into this dreamland of material creation. After being in contact with the material modes of nature, the living entity develops the subtle and gross bodies. When the living entity is fortunate enough to associate with Sri Narad Mahamuni or his servants, he is liberated from this dreamland of material creations and the bodily conception of life. So this is possible if we follow the instructions of Narad Muni, and here Shrutifal means if we just hear this narration or read this narration or speak this narration to anybody, sincerely, hearing has to be sincere, then we will be liberated from the bodily conception of life. Etan mukunda yashasa bhuvanam punanam devarshir varim mukhani sritam atma shocham yah kirtim manam adigachati parameshtyam nasmin bhave brahmati mukta samasta bandha. This narration spoken by the great sage Narad is full of the transcendental fame of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, this narration, when described, certainly sanctifies this material world. It purifies the heart of the living entity and helps him attain his spiritual identity. One who relates this transcendental narration will be liberated from all material bondage and will no longer have to wander within this material world. See the power of these narrations and power of Srimad Bhagavatam. Can any other scripture even claim this thing? No longer have to wander within this material world. As indicated in verse 79, Narad Muni advised King Prachin Barhi to take to devotional service rather than waste time performing ritualistic ceremonies and fruitive activities. The vivid descriptions of the subtle and gross bodies in this chapter are most scientific. And because they're given by the great sage Narad, they're authoritative. Because these narrations are full of the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they constitute the most effective process for the purification of the mind. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirmed, Cheto Darpana Marjana, the more we talk of Krishna, think of Krishna, and preach for Krishna, the more we become purified. This means we no longer have to accept a hallucinatory, gross and subtle body, but instead attain our spiritual identity. One who tries to understand this instructive spiritual knowledge is delivered from this ocean of nescience. The word Parameshtyam is very significant in this connection. Parameshtyam is also called Brahmaloka. It is a planet on which Lord Brahma lives. The inhabitants of Brahmaloka always discuss such narrations so that after the annihilation of the material world, they can be directly transferred to the spiritual world. One who is transferred to the spiritual world does not have to go up and down within this material world. Sometimes spiritual activities are also called Parameshtyam. So Parameshtyam Brahmaloka or spiritual world is also known as Parameshtyam, means it's the pinnacle, it's the topmost position. Adhyatma paroksham idam maya dhigatam adbhutam evam striyashramaha punsas chinno amutra cha sanshaya. The allegory of King Puranjan described herein according to authority was heard by me from my spiritual master. So this is spoken by Maitreya Muni. And it is full of spiritual knowledge. If one can understand the purpose of this allegory, he will certainly be relieved from the bodily conception and will clearly understand life after death. Although one may not understand what transmigration of the soul actually is, one can fully understand it by studying this narration. The word striya, meaning along with the wife, is significant. A male and female living together constitute the sum and substance of material existence. The attraction between male and female in this material world is very strong. In all species of life, the attraction between male and female is a basic principle of existence. The same principle of intermingling is also in the human society, but it's in a regulative form. Material existence means living together as male and female and being attracted by one another. However, when one fully understands spiritual life, his attraction for the opposite sex is completely vanquished. By such attraction, one becomes overly attached to this material world. It is a hard knot within the heart. Means the granthi is very strong. Attraction to the opposite sex. And that's what keeps us in the material world. Everyone comes to the material world attracted to sense gratification. And the hard knot of sense gratification is the attraction between male and female. By this attraction, one becomes overly attached to the material world in terms of Greek, Kshetra, Sutra, Apta, Vitta, that is, home, land, children, friends, money, and so forth. Thus, one becomes entangled in the bodily conception of I and mine. However, if one understands the story of King Puranjan and understands how, by sexual attraction, Puranjan became a female in his next life, one will also understand the process of transmigration. So by studying this, by hearing this, by speaking on these chapters, one gets out of this worldly conception of life, out of this concept of I, me, and mine, out of this conception of being attracted to the opposite sex, and make progress on the spiritual path. So Prabhupada says, special note, according to Vijay Tirtha, who belongs to Madhvacharya Sampradaya, the first two of the following verses appear after verse 45 of this chapter, and the remaining two verses appear after verse 79. So it is possible that some verses, see, some acharyas can also differ in their opinion. So Srimad Bhagavatam, so Prabhupada, there are four verses. So according to Vijay Tirtha Acharya, two of these verses appear after verse 45. And two other verses appear after 79 of this chapter. So not according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan. So it is possible these verses were there and it's possible these verses were not there. But anyway, let's read. Sarveshamev jantunam satatam deha poshane asti pragya samayatna ko vishestas tada nirnam labdhave hante manusyatvam hitva dehadya sadgriham atmasritya vihayedam jivatma savishishyate. A desire to maintain body, wife, and children is also observed in animal society. Animals have full intelligence to manage such affairs. If a human being is simply advanced in this respect, what is the difference between him and an animal? One should be very careful to understand that this human life is attained after many, many births in the evolutionary process. A learned man who gives up the bodily conception of life, both gross and subtle, will, by the enlightenment of spiritual knowledge, become a prominent individual spirit soul, as the Supreme Lord is also. It is said that a man is a rational animal, but from this verse we can understand that rationality exists even in animal life. It means they also take care of their family. Unless there is rationality, how can an animal maintain its body by working so hard? That the animals are not rational is untrue. Their rationality, however, is not very advanced. In any case, we cannot deny them rationality. The point is that one should use one's reason to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not that is the perfection of, for that is the perfection of human life. So we see how animals also look after their family. And if somebody tries to hurt a baby animal, any animal, whether it's a cow, calf, or a cub, or a baby elephant, or anything, the mother, especially the mother, she will come charging, and you have to really deal with the mother. Text 1b, Prabhupada 1b. Bhakti Krishna Daya Jiveshwara Kunta Jnanam Atmani Yadi Syadatmano Bhuya Apavargastu Samsrite. If a living entity is developed in Krishna consciousness, is merciful to others, and if his spiritual knowledge of self-realization is perfect, he will immediately attain liberation from the bondage of material existence. In the next verse, Adrishtam Drishtvana Vanancheda Bhutam Swapna Vadanyatha Bhutam Bhavad Bhavishyascha Suptam Sarva Rarohara. Everything happening within time, which consists of past, present, and future, is merely a dream. That is a secret understanding in all Vedic literature. So like when Prabhupada was explaining about the dream, or Narad Muni was explaining, and Prabhupada was giving his purpose. This verse, according to Acharya, is supposed to be there. Factually, all of material existence is only a dream. Thus, there is no question of past, present, or future. Persons who are addicted to karma kanda vichar, which means working for future happiness through fruitive activities, are also dreaming. Similarly, past happiness and present happiness are merely dreams. Actual reality is Krishna and service to Krishna, which can save us from the clutches of Maya. For the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond my illusory energy. Rest, everything is a dream. Dream means it looks real, but it's all temporary. It's all illusion that we are the controllers or proprietors or enjoyers here. We're just here to get rectified and go back to our original position. So the only reality is Krishna and service to Krishna. So this ends the 29th chapter of 4th canto, and tomorrow we'll start the chapter number 30. So I'm hoping there are only 2 chapters left, 30 and 31st. So hoping that next year we'll start the 5th canto. Let's see. So we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so you all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhuji.
Hare